Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, we're continuing our series on what is, and this time we're looking at what is marine engineering,
AKA naval architecture, or
that
they're
makes me
kind of the
uncomfortable.
same.
Yeah, that sounds too much like civil to me.
This was one of the few. So, like in all these, like what they are engineering wise, this was the first one where they were so closely related to something that had the word architecture in it. Naval architecture sounds way cooler, I have to admit. Like,
It does sound neat.
if I'm out trying to impress people and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a marine engineer or I'm a naval architect, I feel like the naval architect is definitely going to, I think, get a more better, I think that's the proper English,
the most betterest,
the
perhaps.
most betterest reaction from people. So
See, it's kind of like, when I don't mind talking to someone, I'm like, oh, I'm an engineer. Or when I don't want to talk to them about what I do, I'd be like, oh, I do finite element analysis and computational fluid dynamics. And then it's like, okay, leave me alone. So Luke, what is it that a marine engineer actually does?
So, and I this is one I've honestly, so this came from a write-in, I believe.
Multiple write-ins, which
so
makes me think it's a big deal.
I never knew this was a thing.
Me neither.
Like whenever the write-in came in, I assumed this was like marine biology, like engineer, like it was like working with like
You're
fish
engineering
and
whales,
like dolphins and porpoises and narwhals and
do you know the
all
difference
those sorts
between
of
a
things.
dolphin and a porpoise?
No, aren't they the same?
I don't know. Maybe
Wow.
one's, yeah, I don't know.
We digress.
Anyways.
All right. So marine engineers and naval architects, they get grouped together in a lot of this. They design, build, and maintain ships, aircraft carriers, submarines, sailboats, tankers. Basically, any boat is created by a marine engineer or naval architect. And I feel like naval architect, you probably work for the Navy. Marine engineer, you might work for like a bass boat fishing company. So literally any boat has some type of marine engineer that's designing the boat. Because if you think about it, these things aren't like on land. They got to float. They have to be able to be transported. Accurate. They have to be, you were just talking about FEA. They got to be super structural in most cases for carrying big, heavy loads. If you think of a tanker, perhaps. So lots of heavy duty engineering that's kind of, I'll say, different than just traditional mechanical engineering. Although I did read that a lot of marine engineers are mechanical engineers because there's a lot of nuts and bolts, welding,
as we get into what they do, we'll see that there is definitely a lot of carryover between the two of them. It is its own thing, right? But it does feel like it's kind of a subset of mechanical engineering, but just fancy fishy boat kind of stuff. Here's a question for you.
Shoot.
Now, I don't go in the water. I'm like allergic to it, basically.
Can you swim?
Oh, yeah, I can swim.
Like well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, I used to be able to. I can float a lot more easily than I used to be able to.
Just
so
checking.
That's good. If you own a kayak and you kind of like clean it and like drop it in the water, are you now a marine engineer?
So I think so, because a big part of what they do is like the maintenance. So like a lot of times you're considered a marine engineer if you work on a ship and you maintain it. You're not just considered a mechanic, I guess, because I don't know why, but apparently maintaining these and working on either rehabbing them, or if something breaks and you have to fix it, you got to get in there and do your marine engineering thing. So yeah. So you're a marine engineer if you've ever gone kayaking before.
Awesome. Very good. I feel very, successful today.
Okay.
So I know it's always a big deal that we didn't happen to just use Wikipedia, contrary to popular belief.
I didn't.
I was using marineinsight.com for a lot of my information. It was very helpful. Go check their website out and give them some traffic or something.
The one I found was maritime.gov.
Oh, and it's
So
.gov,
so
so you
yes,
can always trust the government.
of course, right? Who doesn't? All righty. So a
We're
couple things that
funny.
a marine engineer typically does,
I
and
want
this
to
this
know.
came from the Business Labor Bureau, so you know it's accurate. It's an
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
official government website. So you're going to prepare system layouts and detailed drawings and schematics. You're going to inspect marine equipment, machinery. You're going to do job requests and specifications that need to happen for the construction of these ships. This was interesting. They do environmental, operational, and performance testing on the marine equipment. So if you think of all the things, so think of an anchor on a boat. Like, not only is there the motor that's lifting the anchor, there's the anchor itself, there's all the pulleys, there's those huge big wheels that the anchor drops down. Did you ever see
I
that
wish I.
video
Ah,
of when the anchor went off of the boat? Like, and they didn't turn the brake on, and it turned like red hot from the friction and like ended up exploding. Yeah,
no, that's
God,
awesome.
yeah, they lost their jobs.
I'm,
Um,
that's reasonable. I've always wanted to drop an anchor. Like, how cool is that? Just drop the big old
I would be
traditional
cool.
looking
Yeah, the
anchor.
hook.
I mean, I don't know how you
Like my
lift that sucker
grandfather had
up, but
tattooed on his
did
bicep.
he really?
Yeah,
Like
but
Popeye?
ah, I yeah, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think he was in the army. I don't know why he would have
Oh,
an anchor.
well,
That's weird.
it
Okay,
is.
so they oversee testing, installation of marine equipment. They check with compliance and standards. There's a lot of regulatory stuff that they need to know. But probably the biggest thing that they do uh, is the testing. So you talked about FEA, you talked about physical testing. That appears to be one of the biggest things that they do. And I'm guessing the reason why these ships are so over engineered is, if you think about it, like, if you make a building or make a piece of equipment that's sitting in a factory and that thing breaks, you just call your maintenance folks, you call your supplier, they send, Bob and Donna out, and
Bob and Donna.
they go fix whatever that piece of equipment is. If a ship breaks and this thing is 10,000 leagues out, or I don't know what a league is, but let's just say I think a league is a depth measurement. So I apologize.
You're
This
really in
thing,
trouble then.
let's say this thing is 10 nautical miles.
There
Don't
you
know what
go,
the
which we
difference is.
also don't
I
know,
still
right?
don't know what that is. So
Uh,
a 10 nautical miles out and it breaks, it's way more difficult. So, like, the idea with, I think, marine engineering is this stuff can't fail. It has to be like so over engineered and tested and proven. I think that tends to be where they spend a lot of their time. And I looked at a bunch of job descriptions on, like, Indeed and Glassdoor and a
mhm.
couple other places. Not that I was looking for myself,
No,
but
no, not at
I would
all.
never do that.
No.
But it was a lot of testing and validation. So all the experience they were looking for like senior folks was all testing, validation, FEA, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
If you think about it too, like if there's a problem, say it's not sinking or anything, but something goes wrong and you have to dry dock those puppies, I
yeah.
mean, that's got to be a huge expense just to, I mean, the crews to get it up there, towing it back, everything like that has to be really
Hmm.
expensive. So yeah, over engineering might not be the worst deal on this
No
one.
joke.
Couple other things here. So
Shoot.
first, totally unrelated, as you're talking about leagues and nautical miles and metric tons and all that. What a great episode that would be! Like these units of measure that we don't know and what they actually mean and how they came about. I think
For
we should do that.
I think we should too. You should jot that down. And for the record, I don't know most general measurements as well. I'm pretty good with feet and inches, like
I
anything it's on a
certainly
tape
lie about
measure.
how big an inch is. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that
but
much.
like when you get into like metric, like a metric ton versus a regular ton, like
Right? Who knows? Yeah.
so
A few more specifics about what they're doing. So you
shoot.
mentioned they do all sorts of cool stuff like propulsion systems. That's cool. Electricity, lubrication, fuel, water distillation, even all of that kind of stuff. But some more specific things about what they do. They have proper record keeping and planning maintenance. So, maintenance is a big part of what they're
Yep.
doing. So, the engine room department works as a team to ensure that the maintenance of all of the different machinery systems on board is carried out according to their plan. So, they have like a schedule that they work through, and everybody, like, they have all sorts of different ranks for these marine engineers, and everybody of the different ranks still has this sort of maintenance and check in kind of job. There's the fuel oil bunkering. So, marine engineers also handle the transfer of fuel oil to the ship. from a bunker station or a barge, so that it can keep going. It's usually the duty of the fourth engineer, which I'll get into regular.
All
Who
righty.
I'll get into later. It also takes fuel oil tanks and report to the chief engineer for planning. And then there's also emergency breakdown and repair. So, kind of like what we were talking about. Hopefully, this doesn't happen a lot, but it sounds like it does. The study of marine engineering teaches you how to deal with major maintenance and breakdown of machinery systems while at sea. So, again, super difficult to get a boat out there, tow you back to wherever you need to go. So, even though marine engineers are really capable because of their training, there still are times where you need somebody who's like an expert. So there might be someone who out there in the world who's an expert on a certain system on your ship, and they can get brought in to assist the less than capable marine engineers that are required to work through the issue.
I feel like you would be a less than capable one.
I mean, I want to take offense to that, but I mean, you're right.
Envisioning you, no matter where you are, you have a life vest on. Like, even if you're not on a boat,
I'm like on land.
You're just
I'm in a
landlocked
state. Yeah. Before we go on with any more about what they're doing or my ineptness, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Do we have a sponsor this week, James?
In fact, we do, Luke.
Oh.
Once again, this week, we're being sponsored by the Big Compute Podcast. Take a listen.
What can computational science tell us about the tsunami generated by the biggest earthquake to ever hit Europe? Before you know it, everything is shaking, and shaking loudly. What makes the coronavirus so contagious?
It's the machine that literally will latch on to your human cell and ultimately infect you.
And what was it like when a massive act of cyber warfare stopped an entire country in its tracks? Their ATM greets you with red text over a black screen. This is really starting to creep you out. These are just some of the questions being answered every day through the power of computing. And on Season 2 of the Big Compute Podcast, we transport you to the heart of these stories, giving you a first-hand look at how computational science is changing our world. Find the Big Compute Podcast wherever you get your audio, or visit bigcompute.org.
All right. So that was wonderful. Thank you, Big Compute. In addition to that, we do still have a few shout-outs.
Who do we got?
Numero uno, Alan R. wrote in. I just want to say that I found your podcast recently and I wish I had found it sooner. Yeah.
I think everybody says that, just saying.
I mean, everybody's disappointed they haven't been listening for years. You make my tremendously monotonous work days over here in the UK so much more bearable. Just wanted to say, keep up the great work. Love the chemistry and humor you guys have. Humor, Humour, because, Brits.
Yes.
Big thumbs up. Love it. Steadily working my way through the back catalog. So thank you, Alan R. Very nice. And then the next one we have is from M. Lloyd. M. Lloyd isn't his name, but he says his name's too common, so we're going with M. Lloyd. I recently found your show and really enjoy it and the topics. It's fun, lighthearted, a dash of humor. I feel like there's more than a dash, but that's fine. I won't take offense. And I get to learn a thing or two. It's a great podcast while traveling to work and back. So thank you, Mr. M. Lloyd. Good luck with your new job, and, write in with some more suggestions as you get through the rest of the episode.
It makes me feel good, James, that our humor transcends cultural boundaries and international lines. Like, everybody thinks we're funny.
COVID can't stop us from crossing the border. Is that what we're saying?
Something like that.
Something like that. If any of you love our humor, think we're really funny, handsome, just great people.
It's a podcast, James.
And want to tell us that, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love listening and watching and reading the reviews. And as always, you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
Yes, I love it. All right, where should we go from here, Luke?
I feel like we need to tell people how to become one, because I want to become a marine engineer after doing this research. Just saying.
Buy a boat.
And a hat.
And a hat.
And a vest.
So how do you become one?
So like we said earlier, it's very similar when you look at the study that they do in some cases to mechanical engineering. So in some cases, they start out as a mechanical engineer. But there are specialized schools and specialized marine engineering programs and naval architecture programs. And we can go through the schools, but typically it's an undergraduate degree. So you're going to get your baccalaureate, I believe is how you say it.
Nice. Yes.
I didn't see any kind of like master's or advanced degrees in my research. I didn't know if you came across any. So I'm assuming this is one of those you just get into the field and it's more like you were talking about seniority.
Yeah, I think it is more seniority and test taking after you get your 4-year degree, or maybe 5 or 6, depending on how slow you are at getting it. Not holding that against you, just
Nope.
don't want you on my ship. But I think you're right, mostly undergrad, and then there's a lot of hands-on experience, and there is a whole test taking system that you have to do to move up in the ranks.
So do we want to do the schools, James?
I always want to do the
Okay,
schools.
so you might have a different list than I have.
I'm
So
sure
I,
I do.
I found these are the top 10 schools, how much they cost in and out of state. The number one school, James, the Massachusetts, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Maritime Academy. It's only
my
10,
goodness.
It's only 10K in state, and it's only 26K out of state, but they only have 92 students enrolled. So this is pretty exclusive. Like,
Honestly. Gosh,
next,
thank goodness you didn't say MIT. Oh
no,
my
no.
goodness.
Actually, is MIT even on?
I
MIT
saw
isn't
it
even on my
listed
list,
somewhere else,
but it's not on my list. Next one is
good.
the Maine Maritime Academy. This is 13K in, 28K out.
That's what I have listed too.
The next one is the United States Merchant Marine Academy. So this is where you actually join a division of our
military
armed forces. I believe they're considered military. It's only $1,000 because the federal government pays for the majority of the cost. So
you still have to pay.
You probably don't. I mean, it's probably
Boy.
like, like, I don't know, food money or something. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
Then the oddballs start to drop in here a little bit.
Mhm.
Texas A&M University, 12K in state.
Of all places, Texas
I know.
A&M.
But I guess Texas, you
It's
think
a big
there's water
engineering
and there's
school.
water,
Yeah.
you got the Gulf and all that stuff
Texas
like that.
has water, except for most of the state. Yes.
39K out of state. SUNY Maritime College. I think this is in California. I think SUNY is a California thing. 8.5K in, 18.5K out.
That's not bad.
And then here's the one that, like, why would you go anywhere else? The United
Why
States
isn't this
Naval
number
Academy.
one? Yeah.
Like, it's free.
Yep.
Like you basically, you go to the Naval Academy, you become an officer, you do all these things that you're going to these other schools for. Don't understand that one. University of New Orleans.
I liked seeing that because you never see the University of New Orleans on these lists.
Yeah,
makes sense though.
8.7 in, 13.5 out. Webb Institute. I don't know who's paying 52K a year roughly for Webb Institute, but
you can go free here, and here, or give us 52K.
You could also do the Coast Guard. You could join the Coast Guard, also free. Again, I don't know why you would go anywhere else. And then rounding out the top 10 is the University of Michigan, and it's 15.5 in, 51K out. So
I certainly don't support Michigan, but I like to see a Big Ten school up there.
But you talk about like an enormous range of price. Like, if you really wanted to do this, why wouldn't you go to like one of these ones up in New England that are like 10K, 28K, or go to the Naval Academy?
Maybe you didn't qualify. Maybe you were student number 93 and you didn't make it into the cut for the Maritime Academy.
The Coast Guard, keep in mind, James, the Coast Guard and Naval Academy, you have to pass a physical fitness test.
So that's why I wouldn't get in. Okay, well, these are all good reasons. That was a perfect list, Luke. Thank you for that.
Yours was the same as mine?
My US list was the same. I do have some universities for people interested outside of the United States, since we are such a global podcast.
Global.
The number one that I saw actually was the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU.
Of course. And who doesn't know the NTNU Mud Ducks?
Always the Mud Ducks. Number 2, the Shanghai Jiao Tong University.
Nailed it.
University of Strathclyde. Newcastle University, University of Southampton, Plymouth University, which was not Plymouth Rock, I found out.
Okay.
Griffith University, Delft University of Technology, always making these lists.
Always.
Technical University of Denmark. Does Denmark have water? I don't
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
really
so.
know my geography that
Geography.
well.
I know there's a lot of lakes and like bridges and water areas.
Something I promise will probably never make another one of our lists, and I love it. Number 12, the University of Tasmania.
Ooh, the Golden Bears. You never.
I assume they're the Tasmanian Devils.
No,
No?
world class ping pong. You never heard of those?
Are you serious?
No, I'm just
Oh,
totally making that up. I'm
my
sorry.
goodness, you're in a mood today. I like
I'm
it.
sorry.
Rounding out the top 20, I'm not using any of the US ones. National Technical University of Athens, the University of Tokyo, the University of New South Wales. I don't know what happened to Old South Wales, but Memorial University of Newfoundland, or maybe it's Newfoundland. I don't know. And then the last one would be Chalmers University of Technology.
Chalmers.
I don't know. I assume that's not in the US. What do I know?
That is an odd name.
Yeah, I like it. So if you're going to school, those are the ones for you.
Alrighty.
Luke, I think before we go on to even more great stuff about this, it's time for this week's Luke's rant.
Okay, so this rant is exceptionally personal, James.
Uh-oh.
Those four of you, and I think two of them are James's relatives that watch our YouTube channel.
Makes it awkward.
It makes it really awkward. Those of you that haven't been up to date, I've been growing my hair out. I have been blessed with a really great head of hair. I'm not balding in any way. It's thick and lush, beautiful brown hair, unlike James. And I've been growing it out for about 6 months now, and it's caused a lot of marital strife. Everybody else loves it. My wife hates it, and I would just and you know, as a married couple, you want to make sure your spouse is happy. You know, you don't want your
Usually,
spouse to
yes.
hate something about you. Don't want to, like, if your spouse hates smoking, then don't smoke. You know, be a good spouse. If your spouse hates chicken, then don't make chicken. But your hair, it's like on my head, right? It's like I liked it, everybody else liked it, and I caved, James. I cut my hair. It's still a little long. It's longer than I normally do.
It is.
But it is way shorter. And for fun, and I wouldn't recommend doing this, guys, or ladies, depending on if you do your own haircuts. I left all the hair in the sink whenever I did my haircut to like show her. And she came home and like went in to use the bathroom, and she's like, "What happened?" And I was like, "No, I just wanted you to see like how long it was. It wasn't like for you to clean up." So she got really mad at me for leaving.
That felt like a poor decision, right?
It was
there,
a poor
Luke.
decision. I should have like kept it in a bag or something and showed it to her.
It's
But
also
she
gross,
was.
but yeah.
Either you don't keep all of your hair trimmings.
I usually have them sweep it up off the floor and like put it in
Okay.
like a
Well,
to-go bag. For
I
me.
cut my own hair, so I've
Yeah.
done that since ever. So yeah, so folks out there that are married or you have significant others, that just make them happy. That's
Okay.
I think the world would be a better place.
It's pretty solid advice.
Yeah.
I have a couple friends who just recently got married. So there you go. Luke is out looking out for you. So, who hires you, Luke? That's what I want to know.
So the most awesome place in the world hires you. It was literally one. I was scrolling through the
Unprofessional
list.
engineering?
No. SpaceX hires marine engineers because of those floaty barge thingies that the rockets land on. They're designed by marine engineers because if it's going to blow up, you don't want it to blow up on land. You want it to blow up over the ocean somewhere. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but that was the coolest one that I saw was SpaceX.
Like, how are you going to beat that? That is amazing. Yeah, I know both like merchant navy and armed navy have tons of opportunities for people in this field. I'm guessing you probably end up going to one of their universities to land one of those jobs, or at least that's who's going to get it first. Because why not, get your school paid for and then do this? Various manufacturing industries as well, though, and units that produce shipping equipment and the different machinery that goes on it. They hire these professionals as well. So you don't necessarily have to work on a boat. You could work on land and design stuff that goes on the boat as well.
The other cool ones I saw?
Oh, yeah. Tell me.
The cruise industry. Now, granted, COVID totally kicked the cruise industry
I don't really
in
have
the
a
you know
job
what. Because the cruise industry is like way down. But
where
like,
did it kick them?
Well,
I don't know what.
It's a family show, James.
Oh, my bad.
Disney Cruise Lines, Princess Cruise Lines, Royal Caribbean, all those ones where people get stomach viruses and it shuts down the ship. All of those companies hire marine engineers to design their new virus-toting petri
Luke,
dishes.
eliminating as many sponsors as possible in one sentence. Thank you, Luke. Not so fun fact for you, good sir.
Shoot.
The gender breakdown looks like this: 95.5% male, 4.5% female.
Oh.
Oof. I don't think I've seen such a disparity yet. I
Yeah.
think that's the worst.
I got some additional numbers for you too.
I love
that probably
numbers.
break this down. So this was as of May 2020, so last year ish. There's only 7,800 Marine engineers in the United States total.
Not so many.
I'm in 87. Sorry, my dyslexia kicked in. 8,700.
That's still not many.
No, it's not. The mean salary for them per year, it's not bad. It's $100,000, like 99.5 and some change. I want to play a game with you, James.
Oh dear. I always do so well.
And the game is, which state employs the most Marine engineers? And I'm going to give you a list of 5: Virginia, Massachusetts, Florida, District of Columbia, or Washington State. Which one of those 5 employs the most?
The District of Columbia is not a state, so
Whatever it is, it's a district.
I'm not going to pick that one. I'm going to go with Virginia, followed by Washington State.
No, Virginia by far has almost 2,000 Marine engineers. I guess Newport News, Virginia, and all those shipbuilding places down there. Number 2 is Massachusetts.
Okay.
With
so I got number 1 right, though.
You did.
Oh, that's good.
Actually, Washington State was actually the least. It was 450.
Don't they have a big shipbuilding place over there? I would have thought
I think they do, but it might be a lot of fabrication, not a lot of engineering. Is happening out of there. So just it's some very, very interesting numbers. Where do you think you make the most money, though? So not like population wise, the most of the jobs, but
which place stinks to work
so
or to live in?
So
I would think
essentially,
DC.
Yeah, DC makes a mean wage if you live in DC of 121,000. The next one is Maine at only 95. I guess that might be cost of living.
Yeah,
maybe bigger companies are in DC.
I feel like if you're in DC, you're like, I'm still barely able to survive now because of this. Like housing there's so crazy. Oh my goodness.
Oh, what else do we got here, James? Anything
career.
else?
I want to talk about the career. So I thought this was super interesting. So like we said, you go to school. So that's a good start. Go to school, kids. Unless you're Steve Jobs, then drop out. But you still have to go and drop out to be successful. First, you get your 4-year degree, and then you kind of go on your ship or wherever for your training. After the successful completion of your training, you become, and I thought this was awkward, you become a junior engineer, which is also the 5th, like a 5th level, 5th engineer. I would have thought that would be better than first, but apparently it's not. So after a successful completion of sea time and passing the class 4 exam, I assume IV is 4, right? In Roman numerals.
Mm-hmm.
You become a 4th engineer. Then after you gain a lot of experience, you can just get promoted by the company. So you don't have to take a test. You become a 3rd engineer. Then again, successful completion of time at sea, more experience, and you pass the class 2 exam, you can become a 2nd engineer. And then a bunch more time at sea, a little bit of luck, and a class 1 exam, you can become a chief engineer. So all sorts of different things. There's a breakdown of different stuff that each of them does as well. But since we are running a little short on time, I'm going to skip that. But keep in mind, you go to college, then you spend time on a boat and pass tests, and that's how you get promotions.
Do you get seasick, James?
Oh my goodness. Yes, Luke.
No,
it's like, it is no joke. Like on a cruise ship, I can survive because it's not so bad.
Yeah, they're big. You're right.
They're very big. Yeah. Oh no.
But like little boat. Like if you were out on Lake Erie.
Nope. Dramamine. I've used those little pressure jiggies that you put on your wrist.
Yeah.
Like no. We don't go on boats. How about yourself?
I'm usually okay with it. I've been on a couple boats. I've done some scuba diving off of like little boats in Mexico, and I've been fine with it. So it's never really bothered me.
Okay. I have a bit on pay. I know you were talking about that. Do you want to speak about that some more?
You can talk about pay. I got a little bit on the growth opportunities and not so great-ish.
Oh, okay. So here's what I have for pay. It does depend on a number of different things. Are you working on land or are you working at sea? That's going to be a big factor in there. Being on a boat is not as comfortable, so they pay you more. If you haven't already, check out our deep sea drilling episode. They probably have some marine engineers, but also they have the same thing. If you're on the rig, you're going to get paid more.
Yeah.
So the type of ship that he or she, usually he, according to our breakdown, is working on, the shipping company, and then your level of experience that I just broke down a little bit ago. The salary structure also varies based on one's nationality and the country that you belong to, of course. And so, looking at the experience, from what I saw when you're starting out, it's looking at entry level around the 60K mark, maybe a smidge more than that. So, not too bad. 1 to 4 years is about 69 on average. 5 to 9 is around 84. 10 to 19 is around that 96. And then even up over 20, you're still looking at about 100K, give or take. And as Luke pointed out, DC is going to be above average for that. Maine might be a little bit less than that. So it really does depend, at least in the US, where you're located. There was an example given for folks in India in this career. So in US dollars per month, a fifth engineer is going to make $350 to $800 per month in India. But a chief engineer is 7,000 to 13,000 per month.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you work your way up, you're making really good money, especially for India. So that's, something to aspire to.
So I do have a couple
Yeah.
outliers for pay, and I don't
Oh,
know
let's hear it.
why, and I didn't have the time to research, but for some reason, if you are in Sugar Land, Texas,
I love that.
it's actually one of the highest annual mean wages of 125. There must be some shipbuilder or engineering firm in Sugar Land. It's probably one of the big ones. I just can't think of it. And then the other outlier is New Orleans, a place called Metairie, Metaire, and it's actually the highest at 129,000. And again, it's an outlier. There's only like 50 people working there, so it's probably like one specialized firm.
Yeah.
And this is all off of the BLS.gov. So this is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, if you're looking for any specifics.
Interesting.
Speaking of labor and statistics, unfortunately, the growth for this is low. The growth is only about 1%. And it's one of these kind of, I'm going to say, erratic jobs, because the vast majority of the work they do is on military ships. So if you think of big, huge military vessels, carriers and those sorts of things. So it really depends on like the temperature of whatever's happening in basically the presidency, and whether, like, depending on what's happening in government, if they're all about build, then they're going to be busy. If they're like, oh, let's kind of shrink the military and let's kind of keep it as it is and not grow the military. So it all depends. So there's like this cyclical wave depending on who the president is, essentially, that determines if the growth is good or the growth is bad for this particular industry. So
good to know. Do you have anything else to add, Luke?
I think that's all I had.
All right. I had one thing. I like that you call it New Orleans. I'm like
New Orleans.
New Orleans. And I feel like that's probably just American talk, right? New Orleans.
Like, how do you say it?
That's how I say it. You say New Orleans, though.
But people from there probably say Norlands.
Nolans, I think, because they can't speak properly. But that's fine. Good for you, Nolans. If any of you want to teach us how to talk like a person
New Orleans, New Orleaners.
What are they? They're Cajuns, right?
Cajun. That's
Cajun.
what I think. It's Cajun.
Yeah, email us and let us know if you want to give us some show topics. If you want to just tell us what a great job we're doing, what a bad job we're doing. Don't send that one unless it's about Luke. Anything like that, just hit us up at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see it.